first to the fallout from the US election, and some journalists don't appear to be coping very well at all.
Knowing all that we know about Donald Trump, his vulgarity and venality, his 34 felony counts and adjudicated sexual abuse of E. Jean Carroll, and so many other women he preyed on, his buddy-buddy relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, his theft of classified documents, his fealty to Vladimir Putin, and that attempted coup. Despite all of that, a majority of American voters actively chose him over her. Women all over this country know what it feels like to be the far more qualified woman who loses the job to mediocre or underqualified men.
Yes, it was the voters who got it wrong. How quick these journalists go from defending democracy to dismissing it altogether. And spare a thought for our comrades at The Guardian, who are being given therapy sessions in the wake of a democratic election not going their way. The Guardian's editor sent everyone in the company an email which basically exposes their operation as a political one. She writes, if you're not in the US, do contact your American colleagues to offer your support. It's upsetting for many others too. If you want to talk about it, your manager and members of the leadership team are available as the people team. There is also free access to free support services. Imagine being so invested in an outcome of an election that you have a mental breakdown and need therapy. And the temper tantrum continued with The Guardian abandoning X, saying it was now filled with far-right conspiracy theories and racism. Hilariously, though, the company is still blacklisting X, even though many of its reporters continue to live on the platform by their own logic, helping to monetize far-right racism. And there might be another reason many of these media companies are so angry: money. There are reports that CNN viewers simply turned off the election coverage when it wasn't going their way. No viewers means no ad revenue, which means no jobs.
Sad and frustrated. Those are the words of one CNN staffer amid the bombshell report that the network is cutting hundreds of jobs and will axe top stars.
Executives are set to unleash a fury of layoffs following CNN's abysmal election day ratings. The network clocked in at just 5.1 million viewers, lagging behind competitors like MSNBC and Fox News. The presidential election has shined a spotlight on the decline of mainstream media, especially cable news.
Well, joining me on the panel this week is Sky News contributor James Bolt and wordsmith and broadcaster Kel Richards. Kel, let's start with you. Thanks for joining us on the desk, both people on the desk today. Quite an incredible meltdown that we're starting to see. Was it what you expected?
Oh, I think so, because they were clearly so emotionally invested in this. I mean, if you listen to what one of the commentators said, that woman was saying there, she said the more capable person was defeated by the less capable man. This is the delusion that Kamala Harris was competent. I mean, Kamala Harris was the most unpopular vice president in American history. She ran an abominable campaign. She was forced on them. They didn't particularly want her. So the idea that suddenly we could take the most unpopular vice president, because we have no other choice, we suddenly have to get rid of Joe and put someone else in, and they can win, is just a delusion. But they actually believe their delusion. I mean, you can understand people running campaigns, you can understand the Democrats saying she's wonderful and you've got to elect her. But for journalists sitting on the sidelines to say this unpopular vice president who's got no real background history and has can't finish an idea and can't complete a sentence, she can be elected. I mean, what kind of delusional world are they living in? I mean, you feel a little bit sorry for them. You feel like, knocking and saying, come on, wake up, it's okay, the world hasn't ended.
And I guess what we're seeing is it's this obsession still with identity politics. And to carry on from Kel's point, they cannot see a world in which this election wasn't about, well, is it a woman? Is it a person of colour? Are you hitting these particular data points? When Americans, are they voting that way? And is that part of this backlash to this legacy media when there are people who are struggling economically and a news anchor cannot bring herself to even mention that maybe people thought this person has a better economic plan?
Yeah, so first off, I don't feel sorry for them. When you say you've got to feel sorry for them. I think Ezra Klein made a really good point today when he said, if you are one of the left bubble media people and you genuinely think the economy is fantastic and the crime is just a creation of Fox News, You need to go out and talk to genuine people, because even in affluent suburbs, so says Ezra Klein, they are talking about how much things are rising in price and how bad the immigration system is. But if you live like Joy Reid and you only see the world through the other people that you talk to at your workplace, you are going to think, hey, the Democrats, everything's great, Biden's the best, but now he's not the best, but Kamala's even better. You're not going to see the world through the way that genuine people actually see it, and then you get caught surprised again by Donald Trump.
James, I want to talk Twitter and The Guardian.
Thank you.
Before we move on, is this a stunt? And what do you make of the fact that they're saying, well, this is an evil, toxic place. It's filled with far-right extremists, but all their reporters are on there, monetizing it.
The Guardian leaving X makes Elon Musk's purchase of the website all worth it. I mean, all the stock price issues, the bots, the algorithm hiccups, it all comes down to this, and it's fantastic. But and also, just with the editor saying that, I'm offering counselling sessions for people that are really upset, I just wonder if Trump supporting Guardian staff were given the same leeway in 2020. I wonder if they were told, hey, you've got to be nice to him. But here's the thing that I don't get about this Guardian stunt, is that news organisations tend to do better when the preferred party of their fans and supporters are in opposition rather than in charge, because there is more things to talk about. I got this stat from the Evening Standard. So speaking of The Guardian itself in the UK, when Margaret Thatcher got into power in 1979, their readership was 379,000 people. When she quit in 1990, it had gone up to 434,000 people. So even The Guardian know, hang on, this Trump presidency could be good for our viewership figures, and yet they are so disgusted by Elon Musk and so angry at negative comments on X, they're shooting themselves in the foot by getting away from it.
Well, Jack, can I make one more point about X?
Please.
These left-wingers are choosing to leave X. If they want to stay, they're allowed to stay. That doesn't happen to right-wingers. Right-wingers were silenced and were kicked off, weren't they, from Twitter? So in other words, if you're a right-winger, you get kicked off. If you're a left-winger, you leave because you choose to leave. So where is the freedom of choice there?
Yeah, and I think we're watching, to your point as well, James, I think we're watching a play. And they are now in the we're holding power to account phase. It's all about money. It's all about brand. I'm obviously very cynical about it. But I think you are right. I think they do enjoy this, but they're pretending to be outraged because it plays their favour. But let's move on, because Trump is moving fast to build his team, even selecting a Fox News host as Secretary of Defense.
America's enemies and woke Pentagon bureaucrats are on notice. President-elect Trump nominating Pete Hegseth as his Secretary of Defense. Hegseth lives and breathes the military. It's in his DNA. He's a combat vet with 20-plus years of service. He did tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, receiving 2 Bronze Stars. Hegseth also has degrees from Princeton and Harvard, but we're not going to hold that against him. Pete also literally wrote the book on how to root out the woke insanity that's weakened our military. The man knows his stuff.
And now that Trump is doing what he promised and what voters elected him to do, the US media is not very happy.
I have to turn to some breaking news, though. Sources tell NBC News that the president-elect, Donald Trump, is expected to pick Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Trump had previously promised RFK a, quote, big role after RFK abandoned his independent bid for president and endorsed Donald Trump. The New York Times describes him like this, as a, quote, environmental lawyer who has no medical or public health degrees and has promoted anti-vaccine conspiracies for years, end quote.
Well, luckily over at MSNBC, they had a real-life doctor in the studio to share her reaction.
Oh my God. I mean, those of us who have spent our lifetime, kind of decades working in and around in HHS, I'm not kidding, Nicole, my texts are flying off the chain, both Democrats and Republicans saying, this can't be real. Someone must have gotten this wrong. This can't be possible. And now the second underlying chain, there's some silver linings. The second thought I had is, he can't get confirmed, can he? But I'm just listening to you talk about the DNI and all these other roles that require some sort of White House or confirmation or some combination. And here we are. It is really hard to believe. There are career staff texting me saying this was just the push they needed to try to get out. They were already on the fence and worried.
James, it makes them look uninformed because Trump has said repeatedly, I'm going to put him in charge of health. And they're sitting there, this reaction, oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, make America healthy again was such a campaign phrase for the last couple of weeks. I don't know where the confusion is. But to the other appointments, I never really got the sense over the last 4 years that Donald Trump actually wanted to be president. I thought he just wanted to win the election, which is, it's great, but now there's 4 years of you, so what are you going to do? And I think these start to give you a clue of what's going on. And there's some very good ones. I think Marco Rubio is a really good hire. And Hegseth, I mean, the media can freak out going, Fox News host, but he is a combat veteran. And anyone who outside of the media hasn't really fired up about this. It's only the MSNBC, CNN, who think Donald Trump watches TV and goes, I like that guy, let's give him a job. They're the ones who freak out here. The one I'm worried about is Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. You think about the Department of Justice and how conservatives are rightly really worried over the last couple of years that it's been weaponised against conservatives and weaponised against Donald Trump. And I just go, it's such a sensitive one. What kind of president are you going to be? Are you going to be someone that says, you know what, those days, the political, machinations of DOJ, that's behind us. We're going to govern for everyone. Or are you someone that says, okay, now I'm in charge, my turn. And when you pick someone like a troll like Matt Gaetz, that's to me Trump's going, my turn now, let's go make some fun with the Department of Justice. And I just go, that's not the leader you want.
Kel, let's bring you in. Your thoughts?
Well, the thing that strikes me is the timing. The announcements have only just come out. They haven't done anything yet. They haven't made any decisions yet. Look, if you go down the road and Robert F. Kennedy makes a bad decision, well, talk about it. It becomes a story. But just appointing Robert F. Kennedy is not a story. And to get to froth at the mouth and be really upset at that point just seems to be really silly.
They're all texting each other saying they're going to resign.
All that, and we hope they do, because the more left-wing medical bureaucrats resign, the more people can be appointed who are more thoughtful or who are more right-wing or more sensible or whatever. The timing is absurd. Now, we do have this peculiar thing where in America, the cabinet is drawn from anywhere. They don't have to be members of the Congress. Because we draw them from Parliament, you won't always get an ex-soldier heading up the Department of Defence or a doctor heading up the Department of Health. We just say their job is to be the administrator and to overlook these people and to supervise these people. If you're in a Westminster parliamentary system, you say, yep, perfectly normal, nothing wrong with that. The way the left-wing media is freaking out in America is simply bizarre.
Yeah, particularly considering some of the people that Biden put in there as well. But look, let's move on, because we're going to the US ambassador who should never have been put in the role, and the media whose shameless barracking and sycophantic posturing betrays their very own audiences. Now, Kevin Rudd, he is the foul-mouthed thug rejected by Australian voters who bullies and threatens journalists, uses incredibly inflammatory language against his political adversaries. But for some reason, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese thought he had the character to be a diplomat. And that decision says a lot about Albanese, because this is some of the stuff that Rudd had said publicly about one very important political figure in the US before he was given the job.
The United States in the last 4 years has been run by village idiots. People have seen China continuing to be competent in its national statecraft, and the United States increasingly incompetent in its national statecraft under Trump.
But the underpinnings of it were still incoherent because Trump himself was incoherent. And he waxed and waned from being in love with dictators to not knowing what he wanted from dictators.
Trump, at present, represents a political liability for both sides of Australian politics. This guy is a problem.
I think the general consensus amongst anyone concerned with the public policy process, domestic or international, thinks he's nuts.
Now, here at Sky News, we broke many of these stories, uncovering old footage of Rudd disgracing himself. It was my team at skynews.com.au which revealed Rudd was scrubbing his social media pages after Trump won, and we think it is important that readers know the truth of the situation, rather than lie to you and pretend, well, Rudd is a good fit because it helps the government. But if you've watched this show before, you'd know very well that not all journalists are honest. Some think it is okay to lie if it serves the greater good. They follow the marching orders of people like Tim Ayres, the aggressive trade unionist turned assistant minister, who says we in the media should shut up and stop criticising government decisions.
There's a lot of noise coming from some Australian media organisations on this question. With the greatest respect, Holly, to your organisation and others, the Australian government, not foreign-owned cable TV networks, the Australian government, on behalf of Australians, determines who is Australia's ambassador to the United States.
Well, with the greatest respect, Tim, if I want to point out that your government made our ambassador a person who called the president a traitor, then I will. But the Sydney Morning Herald thinks that telling the truth is a disgrace. Its editor, Bevan Shields, who endorsed Kamala Harris, said we were a disgrace for mentioning things Rudd said. News Corp has been running hard on this for months, ramping up a sense of crisis to the point where it created one. Media campaigns can be a force for good. This one by News Corp is a disgrace. Shields then hilariously attempted to defend Rudd, saying he's an expert on China. And that's really funny to me because when I think of Rudd and China, I think of this.
And tell these dickheads in the embassy to just give me simple sentences. I mean, I've said this before. And tell that bloody interpreter. This f***ing language. He just complicates it so much, you know? Tell them to cancel this meeting at 6 o'clock, will you? I don't have the patience to do it.
Ever the diplomat. And it wasn't just the Sydney Morning Herald. The ABC also tried to make the story about Sky reporting on Rudd, although Paul Barry was actually much more balanced than Shields.
Pressure mounting on Kevin Rudd to move aside from his US ambassador position.
Kevin Rudd is facing mounting pressure to resign this morning.
Hi, I'm Paul Barry, and Kevin from Queensland may soon be coming home, or so we're told.
Australia's ambassador to the US, Kevin Rudd, is facing calls to resign after he was recorded calling Donald Trump a village idiot.
And who is leading the chorus? Cue the usual suspects who've uncovered some ancient abuse.
Freshly unearthed footage of Kevin Rudd calling Donald Trump a village idiot.
The village idiot. A village idiot. And there's no doubt he said it back in 2021 when Trump had been kicked out of the White House.
James, let's bring you in. The crime is telling people what happened.
Yeah, how dare you? Yeah. The thing with crackpot conspiracy theories like this is they always fall down because you fail to establish a motive. Now, if News Corp really is just trying to do, like, we're trying to get Kevin Rudd fired for no reason other than we don't like him, like, what do we gain from that? He would just come back to Australia more inspired than ever to have a royal commission against News Corp. We do not win. We are reporting this because the ambassador to our most important ally has a history of insulting the very thin-skinned president-elect. This is not good for our economic interests, and it's not good for our defence interests. What we're going to have, I mean, there's that video going around from back on Nigel Farage's interview with Donald Trump where he brings up Kevin Rudd. And I strongly got the sense that Donald Trump had never heard of Kevin Rudd in his life and had forgotten the name the second the interview had ended and does not know who he is right now. But the idea is that eventually Donald Trump is going to go to an event and it's going to be told, hey, you're going to get introduced by Kevin Rudd. This is the Australian ambassador, but don't be nice to him. He's been really mean to you. And it's not because, I mean, I don't want to take away from the great work that Sky News has been doing, but it's not like...
it's a secret.
It's not a secret. He said it on Q&A. Like, that's one of our biggest shows at the time. Donald Trump is going to hear that the ambassador is going to be mean and he's going to be in a funk and he's probably not going to want to talk to him.
I agree. And it won't be a problem until, and this, Bevan Shields in his editorial criticising us, he says, well, Trump has bigger things to worry about. That's true until he doesn't, until there is a diplomatic incident and Kevin Rudd has to remain point. And then all of a sudden he's leverage. And he's leverage in a debate around, well, this person is radical, called me a traitor, called me a village idiot. That becomes part of the conversation then, and that makes us vulnerable.
I won't speed up the supply of a submarine, a nuclear-powered submarine, because I don't like this man. That could happen, I suppose. I mean, it seems to me when I look at this criticism, one of the first things I learnt as a cadet journalist, which you'll be surprised to learn was a few years ago, was news judgment. Is this story newsworthy? Is this really interesting? Is this something people want to know and need to know? And the pretense here is, no, nothing to see here. Don't look. No, of course it's a news story. Of course it's newsworthy. It's good journalistic judgment. And the way that editorial, the Sydney Morning Herald editorial, was worded actually gives the game away. Fairly early in the editorial, he says, Kevin Rudd, who was trained as a diplomat, and then, right, but he doesn't use diplomatic language. And the other comment in the headline was, Kevin Rudd told the truth. That's not what diplomats do. right?
That's a good point.
Diplomats are meant to be diplomatic. They say nice things even about difficult people or about difficult situations. That's diplomacy. He wasn't put there to be Kevin Rudd.
And this suggestion from Albanese that he is the best, you keep hearing this phrase,
yes,
the best person. He's not the best person, clearly. Surely he can't possibly be the best person to do it.
They keep saying also, and look at people like J.D. Vance and Elon Musk, who were once very rude about Trump, but they withdrew their remarks, pardon me, and they apologised. Now,
yeah, he deleted a tweet in the middle of the night, and he wasn't apologetic.
Only after the figures were in and we knew Trump was going to be the president. He wasn't even clever enough to delete the tweets beforehand, and he didn't know what diplomatic
it's
language
a good point,
was.
a good diplomat.
I have a challenge here, which is you raise an interesting point with J.D. Vance and Elon Musk changing their tune on Trump. Perhaps Kevin Rudd should come out and say, you know what, Donald Trump, I got to hand it to him. What a politician. Like, maybe you should just be really, really nice to Donald Trump on camera anytime.
That's right. Give a speech at the Australia-US business lunch or something of that sort in which he heaps praise upon Trump and makes it clear he's backtracked from the... Now, he can repair the damage. He can stay there, but he's got damage. It's really there.
But should the ambassador be the story? I think it's an optics thing, and as soon as there is a question mark, that becomes a problem.